I am asked several times a week by people, what is the best way to squat? What if my knees hurt when I squat? People have a lot of questions about squatting. And squatting is really important because it is something that you do almost all the time, even if you didn't want to squat. So on this video series, I want to give you guys some information, some basics about what I teach people when I'm helping them with a squat. So the first thing I want to do is show you a little drill that you can do to kind of figure out where your knees and hips and feet should be at the bottom of the squat. And all you do is you get on your back, grab your knees like this, and bring your legs, your thighs up to your chest like this, and kind of look down at your feet and what angle your hips are at. And that's kind of where you want to start with setting up for a squat. So that's the first tip. Go ahead and try that, and then we'll move on to another tip about your feet on the next video. Next, let's talk a little bit about how your feet and hips should be set up for the squat. What I find with most people is that they set up a little narrow. So set up just maybe a little wider than you think, and that typically tends to be a pretty good position for people. With your feet, make sure that your feet are pointed or rotated out to the side about 10 degrees. That also seems to be better for people as a more natural position for their feet to be in, to be able to go down with their knees out over their feet and into that natural position for the hips. Make sure the weight of your feet is all the way throughout the bottom of your feet best you can, through maybe feel it over top of the laces. So a lot of people kind of push back into the heels. Try to keep that weight neutral into the feet and you'll have a little bit better base of support when squatting. The next part of the squat that I want you to think about is putting your butt back as you go back into a squat. So a lot of times when people first are learning how to squat, they kind of just think that a squat is just going straight down. So they tend to go just down and they tend to bring their knees forward more than their butt goes back. Sometimes I'll have to teach a patient how to do more of like a hip hinge just to get them to feel that rotation at the hips. So when you squat, think push your butt back like you're pushing your butt up against towards a wall or into the next room. A lot of times I tell my patients, so push that butt back best you can to get down into that squat. And as long as you're thinking butt back, a lot of times that will help you get your butt and your hips where they need to be to do a good squat. Okay, the next part of the squat that you need to think about when learning to squat is making sure you keep a neutral spine. So as you go lower down into the squat, what I want to make sure you don't do is kind of the two extremes. One extreme would be to dump fully into extension like this, where your back's curving in. And the other one would be as you go down, you're dumping fully into flexion like this, okay? So there is a in between, and that would be where neutral spine is. So as you go down, you want to make sure that you can control where your back is in space. Meaning you don't want to let it just dump there or dump there. You actually have to control where it is. This can sometimes be the hardest part to teach. And there's a couple little drills I have for people on how to find that neutral spine, but it's really important to maintain that neutral spine. The last part of the squat that I want to touch on is making sure that when you go down into the squat, that you push your knees out to the side and forward just a little bit. It's a kind of a thing that we used to worry a lot about, is that the knees going over toes, but a lot of times that's just the way people are set up, that their knees do have to go forward a little bit, and it's not really a bad thing. So when you go down in the squat, you're into that nice wider position, toes rotated out to the side. And what I want you to think about is pretend there's a band around your knees and you go down, and I want you to push that, separate your knees apart as if you're spreading that band out as you go down. And this is often the best position for you to be in at the bottom of the squat, and it's really important for maintaining some hip and back stability. So push those knees apart as you go down.